The cold of a Boise Christmas Eve is a particular kind of brutal. It doesn't just nip at your skin, it sinks its teeth in, a dry, crystalline freeze that steals the warmth from your bones. My heavy winter boots, seasoned from years of travel, crunched through the unbroken blanket of snow in my daughter's front yard. Each step was an effort, as if the world itself was trying to hold me back. After a lifetime as a taekwondo coach, from the sweltering, sweat-slicked mats of the dojo to the biting winters of national tournaments, I thought I was inured to discomfort. But this cold was different. It felt personal. I stood there, a solitary figure in the twilight, staring at the warmly lit house. It was a picture-perfect postcard of holiday cheer. Golden light spilled from the large picture window, and the muffled, cheerful strains of Jingle Bells, Emily's favorite since she was a little girl, floated through the frosty air. I could see the shadow of their Christmas tree, a towering spruce adorned with lights, and the long dining table draped in a rich red cloth. It was laden with a feast, a golden brown turkey, steaming dishes of stuffing, glistening cranberry sauce. And there they were, the Whitlock family. I recognized Mr. Harold Whitlock, Ryan's father, holding court at the head of the table with the unshakable authority of a retired judge. His wife, Evelyn, was sipping wine, her smile a little too sharp, a little too pleased. Ryan's sister, Abigail, was there with her 2 children. They were all laughing, raising their glasses in a toast before the crackling fireplace. It was a scene of such profound coziness, such insulated joy, that for a moment, my heart swelled with a foolish hope. Maybe I was wrong to worry. Maybe Emily was just out of sight, perhaps fetching more wine from the kitchen. But then, a sound, a faint, broken whimper, softer than the rustle of frozen leaves. It came from the porch. I turned. And my world stopped. Curled on a bare wooden chair, partially obscured by a snow-laden poinsettia planter, was my daughter. My Emily. She was wearing only a thin, sleeveless blouse and a pair of cotton pajama pants. Her arms were wrapped around herself, her entire body racked with violent, uncontrollable shivers. Her hair was damp, plastered to her forehead with melted snow, and her skin was the color of chalk. Emily! My voice was a strangled cry, lost in the wind. I surged forward, my coach's reflexes taking over. I ripped off my thick, padded coaching jacket and wrapped it around her, my trembling hands touching her arm. It was ice. Not just cold, but a deep, terrifying, lifeless cold. Her head lifted slowly, as if it were a tremendous weight. Her eyes, usually so bright and full of light, were red-rimmed and hollow. "Mom," she whispered, her voice a thread of sound. Then her eyes rolled back, and she collapsed against my shoulder. I caught her, holding her tight against my chest. She was so light, so fragile, like a bird caught in a storm. "I'm here, sweetheart. I'm here," I murmured into her hair, my own tears freezing on my cheeks. I fumbled in my bag, pulling out an extra sweater and wrapping it around her legs. Her soaked slippers fell into the snow as I lifted her. She was a dead weight in my arms, her breath a faint ghost against my neck. And from inside the house, the laughter continued. Careless, cruel, and utterly oblivious. I heard Ryan's voice, deep and smug, boasting about some recent victory. The whole table erupted in mirth. The clinking of their champagne glasses was a mockery, a sinister soundtrack to my daughter's suffering. They were warm. They were fed. They were happy. And my child was freezing to death on their porch. A few hours earlier, the unraveling. The plan had been simple. A surprise. After a grueling week coaching the national team in Seattle, I caught the first flight back to Idaho. I pictured it all in my head during the entire flight, me showing up on her doorstep, her face lighting up with that radiant smile that had been my anchor through every tough day since her father passed. She'd throw her arms around my neck, just like she did as a little girl, and we'd spend Christmas together, just like we used to. But the first thread began to unravel at the airport. I pulled out my phone, my fingers numb with more than just cold. "Mom's on her way. You home?" I typed. The message sat there. Delivered. But no reply. No bouncing dots. Just silence. I called. It rang and rang, each tone a hammer strike on my nerves. I tried to rationalize it. She's busy with dinner. Her phone's on silent. She's decorating the tree. On the taxi ride to Meadow Creek, the streets were clogged with festive traffic. Families, bundled in colorful scarves and mittens, walked hand in hand to midnight mass. I saw a father lift his little girl onto his shoulders, her laughter ringing out like a bell as she clutched a candy cane. The sight was a physical ache. I remembered those days. I remembered carrying Emily just like that, her small hands tangled in my hair, her breath sweet with hot chocolate. When the taxi stopped at an intersection, I saw a familiar face directing traffic, Jake, a former student from my days teaching at the community center. He'd been a scrawny kid, all elbows and knees, but with a fire in his belly. Now, he stood tall and confident in his police uniform. "Jake!" I called out, rolling down the window. His face broke into a wide grin. "Coach Rose! You're back. Just finished in Seattle. Here for Christmas with Emily." And just like that, his smile vanished. It was a flicker, so fast I almost missed it, but I saw it. A shadow of doubt, of worry, in his eyes. "Is everything okay, Jake?" I asked, my voice low. He forced the smile back onto his face, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Yeah, of course, Coach. Just, glad you're back." The traffic light turned green. "Merry Christmas," he said, a little too brightly, as the taxi pulled away. I watched him in the side mirror, standing alone in the cold, gripping the brim of his cap, his gaze fixed on our departing car. The knot of unease in my stomach tightened into a hard, cold ball of dread. When we finally reached her street, I asked the driver to stop a distance from the house. The surprise was still the plan, but now it felt tainted by fear. I left my suitcase at the end of the path and walked through the deep snow, the golden glow from the windows of the neighborhood houses feeling less like welcome and more like accusation. I was steps from the door, my hand raised to knock, when I heard it. A voice, sharp and mocking, slicing through the Christmas music. "That's what they call a daughter-in-law?" It was Harold Whitlock's voice, gruff and dripping with contempt. "A woman who can't even have kids. 4 miscarriages. Haven't they embarrassed us enough?" My blood ran colder than the Idaho air. Then Ryan, my son-in-law, the man I had trusted with my only child, she's always faking depression, locking herself in her room. If it weren't for my parents, I'd have kicked her out ages ago. Laughter. Cruel, unison laughter. Abigail's venomous soprano joined the chorus. "Totally useless. A wife who can't have kids. What's she good for? Pathetic." Each word was a shard of glass in my heart. 4 miscarriages. Each one had been a little death for Emily. I'd held the phone to my ear, miles away, as she sobbed until she was hoarse, her grief a tangible thing that stretched across the distance between us. And they called it an embarrassment. They called her useless. My fists clenched, my nails digging half-moons into my palms. That's when my searching eyes, scanning the darkness for her, found her. Huddled on the porch chair, a ghost at their feast. The 6 words. Holding my shivering daughter, her body so cold it burned my arms, I turned toward the front door. The laughter from inside was a physical force, pushing back against me. I didn't knock. I kicked. My boot, hardened from years of stomping on dojo floors, connected with the wood next to the handle. The door flew inward, slamming against the wall with a crack that silenced the room. The Christmas music stopped abruptly. Every face turned to me. I stood in the doorway, a mother wolf with her cub, the freezing wind whipping in around me. My gaze swept over the stunned, opulent scene. Evelyn Whitlock stood nearest, a glass of red wine sloshing in her hand, her painted lips parted in shock. "Rose! What a surprise," she stammered, her voice syrupy and false. "Why didn't you let us know?" "Let you know?" I snarled, my voice low and dangerous. "If I'd let you know, I never would have found my daughter freezing to death on your porch." Evelyn's eyes flickered to Emily with a look of pure distaste. "Oh, don't be so dramatic. Emily just wanted some fresh air. It's Christmas. Come in and don't stand in the cold." Ryan shouldered his way past his mother, his face flushed with wine and arrogance. "Mom, close the door," he commanded, his eyes locked on me. "Let her stay out there till she gets over it. Who shows up to Christmas dinner acting all fragile?" From the table, Abigail sneered. "Exactly. A woman who can't even carry a baby to term. What's she worth? Useless." The words hung in the air, toxic and foul. I saw Emily flinch in my arms, a fresh tremor running through her. That was it. The last thread of my restraint snapped. I walked into the center of their living room, my boots leaving wet, snowy prints on their pristine hardwood. I ignored them all, Harold's cold stare, Evelyn's smirk, Abigail's disdain. Gently, I laid Emily on their plush velvet sofa, tucking my scarf around her neck. Her eyes were wide with terror and shame. I turned to face them, my body thrumming with a lifetime of disciplined energy now threatening to break its banks. Ryan took a step forward, puffing out his chest. "You don't get to make a scene in my house, Rose." Harold Whitlock rose to his full height, the retired judge ready to pass sentence. "That's enough, Ms. Rose. This is a family matter. A woman who can't bear children needs to learn to endure. That's just how it is." I looked from his arrogant face to the table groaning with food, then back to my daughter, who hadn't been offered so much as a crust of bread. "So," I said, my voice eerily calm, cutting through the tension like a blade. "You feast while my daughter starves in the cold. You toast your good fortune while she loses hers, over and over again." Evelyn gave a delicate, icy shrug. "A woman who can't have children, even if she eats, it's a waste." That was the final straw. The last vestige of the polite, accommodating mother-in-law evaporated. I looked at Ryan, at the man who had vowed to love and cherish my daughter. And I spoke the 6 words that would change everything. My voice didn't shake. It didn't rise. It was a flat, cold statement of fact, laden with a promise. "I'm glad you're here," I said, my eyes locking with his. "I'm glad you're all here. Because now you will all bear witness." The room was utterly silent. The only sound was the crackle of the fire and Emily's ragged breathing. "You will bear witness," I continued, "to the end of your reign over my daughter. You will bear witness to the fact that you left her to freeze. You will bear witness to the fact that you called her worthless for suffering the greatest loss a woman can know. And you will bear witness to the consequences." I turned my back on them, a deliberate and final act. I scooped Emily back into my arms. She felt a fraction heavier, as if a tiny seed of strength had been planted. As I walked out of their house, out of their lives, I didn't look back. I carried my daughter through the snow, toward the taxi that still waited, toward safety, toward a future where she would be loved, not for what she could provide, but for who she was. The war wasn't over. I knew that. There would be lawyers, a divorce, a battle for her dignity and what little assets were hers. But the first and most important battle had been won on that threshold. I had reclaimed my daughter. And I had shown the wolves that this mother was not afraid to fight. Author's note. This story, while fictional, is woven from threads of a painful reality that too many families face. The names and places are shadows, but the silence that surrounds miscarriage, the sting of emotional abuse, and the fierce, unyielding love of a parent are truths I know all too well. We share these stories not to settle scores, but to shine a light. To let someone out there, shivering in their own kind of cold, know that they are not alone. That their pain is valid. That they are not useless. I often wonder, if you were in my shoes, what would you do? Would you choose the quiet path, the one of peace at any cost? Or would you find the courage to speak 6 words, or 60, or 6,000, to reclaim the voice that was stolen? Every story shared is a candle lit in the darkness, a beacon for someone else finding their way. Thank you for listening to mine. I believe, with all my heart, that courage always leads to brighter days.